Even if you're not directly in it, you're probably pretty familiar with the world of bodybuilding. It's a world in which absurdly muscular men lift heavy weights.
Really doesn't matter. What matters most is what you believe.
Hoping that they will eventually be so strong they could lift a house one-handed. From one of the best bodybuilders of the 1990s to the Incredible Hulk himself, let's take a look at the 15 biggest bodybuilders to ever walk this earth. Number 15. Kevin Levrone. Bodybuilding is a worldwide industry made up of millions of muscular people all around the world, which only makes it even more impressive when a bodybuilder is heralded as one of the greats.
Stay focused, stay strong, baby.
And Kevin Levrone, considered one of the best bodybuilders of the 1990s, definitely earned that title. At his competitive peak, Kevin Levrone weighed 253 pounds, or 115 kilograms. At this weight, Levrone competed in 68 International Federation of Bodybuilding and Fitness contests during his career.
Because I believe that I can do it, and I'm going to show you that I can do it.
Despite having never won the prestigious Mr. Olympia title, he did win 23 pro shows and even broke the record for the most wins by an IFBB professional. Until 2004, that is. That record has now been broken an additional 2 times, but Levrone maintains his place in history as one of the few to have done it. And what have I done? Finished 3 bags of Cheetos in a single sitting and did a sit-up. Levrone's post-bodybuilding career has included brief entries into the world of music, acting, and even an online training platform. I'm not sure you can have a more varied career than bodybuilding, music, acting, and educating. That's wild. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. It's time for the rare topic. When we're talking about bodybuilders, it's essential to acknowledge the fact this is a hugely popular pastime all around the world. Case in point, this guy. That insanely ripped guy is apparently known as the African American Hulk, one of Africa's most famous bodybuilders, which isn't really surprising. Look how tiny that guy next to him looks, or the fact that his head looks like a grape compared to his own body. What do you guys think? Amazing or weird? As always, comment down below with the hashtag #RareTopic and let us know your opinion in relation to what we just showed on screen. Let's move on to the next one. Number 14. Lou Ferrigno. A good chunk of you will probably already know precisely who Lou Ferrigno is. Ferrigno is not just one of the most famous bodybuilders of all time. He was also the original Incredible Hulk. Sorry to all you Ruffalo heads, this guy was the OG green dude. Shortly after he graduated high school, Ferrigno won his first major title in his competitive career, Mr. America.
I love you all.
Yes, he was Mr. America as a teenager. Let that sink in. Just 2 years after Ferrigno won one of the most desirable contests in all of competitive bodybuilding, Mr. Universe. Around this time, he began training alongside the kindergarten cop himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger, even appearing alongside him in the documentary Pumping Iron, in which Ferrigno tries to beat Schwarzenegger at the Mr. Olympia competition, The Hulk versus the Terminator. It's a matchup nobody would ever have seen coming. Like Schwarzenegger, Ferrigno is a massive part of what made bodybuilding so appealing to the general public. For many, these two men and their friendly rivalry was 1970s bodybuilding. And for others, he was the big green guy that kicked ass. And that's pretty good too. Number 13. Dennis Wolf. With a name like Wolf, you have to imagine that he's going to be some kind of beast, and given that this German bodybuilder goes by the nickname the Big Bad Wolf, I think it's fair to say that this is very much the case. Not howling at the moon for this guy. Wolf began pursuing a career in bodybuilding at the age of 18, after he became inspired by photographs of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I presume those photos were not from the movie Junior, in which he becomes pregnant. Anyway, Wolf spent years carefully sculpting his muscular body before eventually diving into the world of bodybuilding contests. Soon, he was winning professional shows and became well known as a bodybuilder in his own right, eventually winning the elite 2014 Arnold Classic Europe contest. Today, Wolf is considered to be one of the greatest bodybuilders in the modern industry, right up there with his original inspiration. Thankfully, Wolf has yet to make a movie in which he gets pregnant, but there's time. The big bad wolf may well be a pretty intimidating figure, but there's no denying that he is absolutely one of the greats of modern bodybuilding. I, for one, look forward to seeing the big bad wolf making a Kindergarten Cop sequel. Number 12. Mustafa Ismail. Like every life, every bodybuilder is unique. Some of them have bigger thighs, shoulders, egos. It's all very much dependent on the bodybuilder. But in the case of Mustafa Ismail, an Egyptian bodybuilder, we have a record-breaking body part. Please don't let your mind go somewhere disgusting. Ismail is perhaps most famous for breaking the Guinness World Record for the world's largest arm circumference. Easily one of the more niche records you can possibly break. Ismail's biceps were measured at a pretty freaky 31 inches, which is insane! But Ismail's record-breaking biceps were met with some controversy, as usually happens with record-breaking incidents. Some believe that Ismail's legendary biceps were achieved via the use of body-enhancing substances, such as the synthol he apparently used so often. Due to this controversy, the Guinness Book of World Records was forced to retire the largest upper arm circumference record, due to the inability to prove whether it was achieved legitimately. Ismail's legacy will probably be somewhat tainted by this Guinness World Record saga. Still, the fact that he was able to get his biceps to a frankly inhuman size is more than enough to be considered a real bodybuilder. It's weird though. Number 11. Lee Haney. Chances are you've never heard of Lee Haney, which is kinda crazy considering his legacy. While he may not be quite as famous as Arnold Schwarzenegger, Haney is widely considered the greatest bodybuilder of all time, and that may not be an overstatement. Haney initially didn't want to be a bodybuilder. His childhood dream was to be a professional football player, but a leg injury brought an abrupt end to that, turning his attention to bodybuilding. He began his career with some major success. By the age of 24, Haney won 8 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles, beating Schwarzenegger's record and becoming the youngest to achieve this incredible feat. Haney's record-breaking streak was enough to land him the title of all-time greatest bodybuilder. But he had another record lined up. After retiring from bodybuilding competitions at the age of 31, Haney became the youngest to retire. Hell of a career. Considering his legacy, it really is pretty shocking that Haney is not more well known. How many other bodybuilders have broken this many records? Somebody should have given this man an action franchise. Number 10. Johnny O. Jackson. In the bodybuilding world, as with just about any other industry, a compliment from the legends is worth its weight in iron? For Johnny O. Jackson, those legends have often said that he has one of the best developed upper bodies in professional bodybuilding worldwide. That's a big compliment. During his contest peak, Jackson weighed 255 pounds and was competing in bodybuilding contests between 1998 and 2017. An unbelievable streak! Jackson's commitment to his career made him one of the few professionals to compete in the Mr. Olympia competition for over 13 years, only missing 1 year, 2009. While Jackson never won that particular contest, it never stopped him from competing. After all, who cares about one contest when you can win any number of others? Jackson's contest history shows that he was more than good enough to win a whole bunch of others. Jackson's upper body is probably going to be a significant significant part of his legacy, but it's important to remember just how determined he was to succeed in his chosen career. One thing is for sure, there's a lot more to Johnny O. Jackson than his upper body. Number 9. Flex Wheeler. Arnold Schwarzenegger is not one to dish out praise just for the sake of it, but the Terminator himself described Kenneth Flex Wheeler as one of the greatest bodybuilders I've ever seen. You can bet he meant it. Let's explore why. Wheeler's most notable accomplishment is likely his 4-time victory at the Arnold Classic 4 times, a record for the period. But he's much more than a repeat winner of one contest. Wheeler is also a 5-time Ironman Pro winner. And has won the France Grand Prix, the South Beach Pro Invitational, the Night of Champions, and the Hungarian Grand Prix. So it's fair to say that he's not exactly a one-trick pony. Unfortunately, following a pretty horrific car accident, Wheeler retired from competitive bodybuilding in 2000, although he was still competing until 2003. In more recent years, Flex made a grand comeback, competing in the 2017 Mr. Olympia contest and placing 15th in the leaderboard. It's pretty obvious why Flex is heralded as such a legend of the sport by his peers and inspirations. The man is a machine, capable of taking on any challenge and succeeding. I mean, he came back from a car accident, retired, and still kept competing. How badass is that? Number 8. Roly Winklar. Egberton Rulov Etienne Winklar, or Roly for short, is a pretty impressive specimen of a man. At a whopping competition weight of 297 pounds, it feels a bit of a stretch to suggest he's a mere mortal like you or I. He's pretty clearly something else entirely. Come to think of it,
is another opportunity for you.
The rest of us are just tiny. Also known as the Dutch Beast or the Samurai, Roly Winklar made his professional debut in the 2009 NPC Arnold Amateur, a contest in which he placed first. Not a bad debut, eh? Since then, Roly has competed in a steady string of contests all around the world, with a whole bunch of first-place victories. It's fair to say that Winklar is a fierce competitor if his contest history is anything to go by. And he's not just a good competitor, he's a fan favorite. At the 2008 Mr. Olympia contest, Winklar won the People's Champion Award, thanks to the fan vote. Even in his 40s, Roly Winklar is considered to be one of the rising stars of modern bodybuilding, and apparently, it seems like he has the fans on his side too. He is, after all, the People's Samurai. Number 7. Philip Heath. If any ordinary person referred to themselves as the Gift, they'd no doubt get the absolute living mercy kicked out of them. Luckily for Philip Heath, people know better than to start a fight with a 240-pound hulk of a man. And those that do decide to start a fight, well, nobody's heard from them since. Heath is no ordinary bodybuilder, but is a 7-time Mr. Olympia winner, winning every consecutive contest between 2011 and 2017. This achievement puts him on par with Arnold Schwarzenegger for the joint second number of Mr. Olympia wins, behind the joint first record of Lee Haney and Ronnie Coleman. Heath's bodybuilding career began in 2002, where he abandoned his business administration degree for a life of lifting heavy things and looking like an absolute unit. Like many bodybuilders, Heath eventually began diversifying his career interests, briefly entering the wrestling world for one 2013 Tag Team Gauntlet match. Bodybuilders have some interesting lives. One look at Heath's competitive history is pretty impressive reading. Of the 26 contests he's entered, he's placed first in 18. That's an insane track record, and just shows how incredible Heath is at what he does. Maybe he really is the Gift. Number 6. Kai Green. There's a reason that Kai Green is known as Mr. Getting It Done. When you get the inspiration to transform your body into a 285-pound structure made of pure muscle, you don't have any other options. And you know what? He really did get it done. as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. Green's bodybuilding career began in 1994, when he entered the NGA, American Nationals, as an absurdly buff 19-year-old. Just 2 years later, he was already winning bodybuilding contests like the WNBF, Pro Natural Worlds.
Well, it was a big story at the Olympia.
Since then, his career has been a steady string of contest wins or high placements, including a 3-year streak in which he placed second at the 2012, 2013, and 2014 Mr. Olympia competitions. Green has since turned his attention to other pastimes, including podcasting, acting, and even painting. I guess painting is simple if you can sculpt your body into a temple of sheer muscle. Kai Green more than lives up to his nickname. He is the ultimate example of what getting it done looks like. He transformed his body and made a name for himself in the bodybuilding world. But he's also accomplished things in other fields. Can't argue with that. Number 5. Günther Schlierkamp. To those of us that perhaps never got around to turning our bodies into weapons of pure muscle, the idea of a 20-year-old German guy just turning up and winning bodybuilding contests is insane. Well, get ready, because this is apparently a real thing. What were you doing when you were 20? Probably not this. Schlierkamp's professional bodybuilding career began in 1990, where he kicked off a pretty stunning streak of first-place victories, all when he was still under the age of 24. At his competitive peak, Schlierkamp weighed a whopping 300 pounds, a mass that he sustained for his entire career, right up until his immediate retirement from the profession in 2006. Since then, he's kept the weight and moved into other fields, most notably acting, because, let's be honest, after Schwarzenegger did it, why wouldn't anybody else try it? Twins 2 is just around the corner. Schlierkamp's career may not have been quite as perfect or as glittering as some other bodybuilders, but he was easily one of the heaviest in-season bodybuilders of all time. And that's no mean feat. It's like they eat one another. Number 4. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Need we say more? You know him, you love him, you probably quote him anytime even the slightest opportunity presents itself. Long before he was a world-famous megastar, Arnie was a hard-working bodybuilder who started weightlifting at the tender age of 15. I have never felt more like I wasted my life. By the time Arnie was 20, he had already won the Mr. Universe contest, a title that he would go on to win 7 times in a row, forging a new world record.
One and only, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
During his contest peak, Arnold weighed 235 pounds, which is relatively light compared to some other, shall we say, more intense bodybuilders. However, his influence cannot be understated. Despite his retirement from the sport in 1980, Arnold's legacy has been one of inspiration for young weightlifters the world over. He continues to inspire with his story, and even has a whole weightlifting contest named after him, the Arnold. Arnold Schwarzenegger has often been heralded as the perfect example of the American dream, and it's easy to see why. But Arnold's legacy in bodybuilding is something all of his own, and it's a sport that he continues to promote even today. Number 3. Marcus Rohl. Often, with bodybuilders, you discover that a single injury in one sport leads them to the very thing that will eventually be their legacy. For Marcus Rohl, a career in football may have been sidelined, but a whole new, and more important, career revealed itself. I once got fired from a Starbucks, and a bird pooped on me the same day. What kind of career is that? After this football injury, a doctor recommended that the 120-pound Rohl take up weightlifting. And boy, did he heed that advice. Rohl decided that no half measures would be undertaken on this quest, spending 6 days a week on hardcore training before he eventually decided to go professional. The rest is history. At a competitive weight of 282 pounds, Roll began his professional career in 1999, when he was disqualified from Mr. Olympia for using some, shall we say, unfair substances. But following this minor blip, Roll went on to a long career of contests before his eventual retirement from bodybuilding contests in 2010. Since then, Roll has turned his attention to his new business, a supplement company called Roll's Bestis. Let's hope that nobody gets disqualified for, using them. Number 2. Dennis James. For fans of bodybuilding, Dennis James is probably better known as the Menace, although he's maybe not quite that intense. Although when someone starts bodybuilding at the age of 18, you have to expect that they're going to be a little more frightening than your average high school kid. And they are frightening. James began his professional career in 1993 at the age of 27? Okay, so here's a brief word of warning going forward. James has admitted that he lied about his age in the past. So this information may not be totally accurate, but I'm going to do the best that I can. At his competitive peak, James weighed 258 pounds, which is substantially less than his peers. But it doesn't seem to have mattered much. James had his fair share of first place, and he competed in every Mr. Olympia between 2000 and 2006. Ultimately, in 2012, James retired from the world of bodybuilding, and that's when he made his age revelation. So who the hell knows what else is true? While he may not have had the kind of breathtaking streak that some other bodybuilders had, it's hard to pretend that James was not impressive in his own right. I mean, he's the Menace. Wait, he's Dennis the Menace. How did I just now get that? Number 1. Ronnie Coleman. Alright, let's just get this out in the open. Ronnie Coleman is most likely the greatest bodybuilder of all time. There, I said it. It's hard to find anybody that holds quite as many world records for bodybuilding as him. That alone qualifies. I said what I said. For those that perhaps don't know Ronnie Coleman, here's a brief summary of what you should know. At his contest peak, Coleman weighed 300 pounds. He had a 20-year career spanning 1990 to 2009, and for a long time, he held the record for the most wins as an IFBB professional. That record, you ask? He won 26 titles, including 8 Mr. Olympia wins in a row. While Schwarzenegger may be the international face of bodybuilding, it's fair to say that Coleman absolutely deserves his place right up there on the pantheon of uncomfortably muscular men lifting heavy weights. For many bodybuilders, it just doesn't get better than Ronnie Coleman. For them, this is no mere man, no mere bodybuilder. Ronnie Coleman is the inspiration we are all to follow. I think I just started a cult to Ronnie Coleman? Well, that's a twist I didn't see coming. Which of these bodybuilders do you think is the best? Let us know in the comments. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on screen right now. See you next time.